Now, if you're training with a traditional true Brazilian, let me tell you what's going to happen. You already lean in. I'm going to say something unpopular again for another week. And I love Brazilian. I don't have nothing against Brazilians, so don't front with me. You know what I mean? But if you train at a legit academy, this your instructor going to come and go,
Welcome to the Winner's Circle, the podcast about jiu-jitsu, MMA, and other combat sports. I am one of your hosts, Eugene Plowden, and with me, as always, my podcast partners, Isaiah Gathings, Angel Diaz. What's up, fellas?
What's up? What's going on?
Bro?
If this is your first time with us, I want you to know we are members of the Martial Arts in the Network. On Mondays, you got us with the Winner's Circle. Tuesdays, you got the Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. Thursdays is me and Angel with Fists, Kicks, and Flicks, and Joe Hartley. Take it away, Angel.
Wednesdays, you got the traditional way with Brett Shumway, and once a month, you got the extra scoop with Peyton Fender and Jeff Doss.
For more information, you can check us out on all of our social media platforms. Just look for the Martial Arts in the Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Fellas, it's showtime. What's going on, guys?
Hey, man, it's Easter, man. So just enjoying this Easter weekend, man. You know, and just sitting back, kicking back, and just trying to relax and enjoy some family time. And I'm excited to be here with you guys, as usual.
420.
420.
How you doing, Angel?
And Easter.
That's right.
Not, man. For me, just like I said, I've had a good weekend. The Lord has risen. You know, it was a good, happy Easter day with my family. I got to see the Knicks win yesterday, so it's just been a good weekend.
Man,
it's been a good weekend all around. But yeah, man, that's just been the biggest thing. Just, I guess now for me, it's just getting back to reality. So that's really all I got.
Okay, all right, cool. Isaiah, man, I got a question for you, man. Because I see that you're opening up your school back here in the Detroit area, Clinton Township, and how are you going to do that living in Las Vegas?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
So I'm blessed. So I had an academy or a few different academies that ran for about 15 years. And I closed it in 2019, December 2019, right around COVID, which several of my good martial art buddies had to close their doors due to COVID and just, moved on with life. But when we closed those doors, and one thing COVID did is it allowed us to be creative, and forward thinkers. And, this is why we saw a lot of the Zoom started to become very prominent and webinars, and even these podcasts start popping up a lot. So over the years, I've still been actively training my students, particularly my black belts, a handful of them via Zoom classes. And you see me frequent. I go back and forth to Detroit quite often, probably about 4 to 5 times a year. And most of the times just going back for testings to test them and interact with them, to do competitions and things like that. And this is really something that they've been pushing for a while. They want to get back active. They're still training with me via Zoom, but they want to be active because they're instructors. Many of them are instructor status. So they're going to be the ones running the school. Even when I moved here to Vegas, I still had a school there. And it was being ran remotely by Brian and by a couple of my other students for at least a couple of years before we closed due to COVID. So it'll still be ran remotely, just with a different group of my black belts, very trained, very seasoned. All of them in training with me for over a dozen years. And they're excited and they're looking forward to getting out there and being able to spread the knowledge and keep the Sudutai name and legacy alive.
All right, cool. Man, I'm glad that last week you explained your background, because I always wanted to know where you got the name Sudutai from. Now I know, Tang Sudo, Taekwondo, and Muay Thai.
That's right. Okay. That's right. Yep.
Okay, cool, man. I was wondering how you were going to do that, man.
Yeah, it's, I mean, again, I think that COVID really, really showed us a lot about our staying power and how to be able to sustain, And one of the things that's important to me, and I've told my students, and I recently told them this when I was in Detroit, I just got back this morning, so it's been like a long past few days for me. But I told them, I say, hey, listen, like I want you guys to understand, by opening this back up, I told them this before we closed, I don't need a school. Okay, I don't need a school. The
Mhm.
school's not for me. The school's for you guys. You need a school. It's your responsibility to keep and to keep up and to teach and to spread the knowledge. As martial artists, we have it here. You know, we have it here in our mind. We have it. We've been training for years. We have it in our hearts. You know, I can take the knowledge that I have with me anywhere, and I do that in Las Vegas when I work with different fighters, whether it be jiu-jitsu or traditional martial arts or whatever. But the actual brick and mortar building is something that is for you guys. So it's your responsibility to be able to keep up. So, you know, they're excited about that challenge. They understand that Surutai has to be bigger than me. Like, I'm not going to be here forever. And I think that we don't structure our martial arts programs and systems in a way where we actually consider that and we believe that. The reason we're training martial arts now is because somebody a long time ago understood this in Taekwondo, you know, in Ishinru, in Jiu-Jitsu, and, you know, Wushu or whatever, that, hey, you know what? It's bigger than me. I need to train my students up so that they can pass this lineage along. And that's the reason why we still have access to it today, even something as modern as Jeet Kune Do, right? But for us, it's like we have to be in the forefront as instructors. And when we pass away, it dies with us. Whatever it is that we taught and we trained, the students aren't galvanized to be able to continue to spread the knowledge or teach other individuals. They just kind of fall by the wayside. They memorialize and remember their instructors, and then they end up just kind of fading into society and just, you know, picking up something else and not doing it at all anymore. It's really important that these styles and systems becomes faceless. I could have called it Gaving's Dojo or Gaving's Martial Arts. I didn't do that because it was important to me that regardless of whether it was my son that took up the mantle after I left or whatever, that the style would continue. And that I should not be the face or representation of the system. That was hard to do when I was there. I was there all the time, right? My family was there. I raised my kids in the dojo. But now with me not being there, there'll be a whole crop of parents and students that'll come in that they'll know me, but I won't be Surutai. Surutai will be the experience that they're getting. And that's what matters. You know what I mean? Who owns McDonald's or created it? That's not what's important. What's important is that the hamburger tastes the same across all countries and cities and states, and that you enjoy the meal. The person shouldn't have to be out in front. So I get to separate myself from the style and allow the style to stand on its own and hopefully be able to stand the test of time by me being able to run it, not being right in front of the class each and every single time.
Now, have you ever thought about opening up an academy out in Vegas too, or is it just too much competition out in Vegas?
It's not really competition. It's the landscape is very different. And I couldn't have known that until I moved down here. I moved down here with the intent of opening an academy, and I've been here 8.5 years. And it's a very different landscape.
Wow, it's been that long already.
It's been 8.5 years.
Okay.
And the reason why is that if you think back when there was a serious recession, and everybody thinks that their particular region was hit the hardest by the recession. Oh, we got hit hard, we got hit hard. Well, you have to remember that about 70 to 75% of the lifeblood that flows through Vegas from a financial standpoint comes from tourism. So if each individual city, state, or country was affected by this recession, it caused them to do what? Stop traveling. So if they're not traveling because they're trying to get their feet up underneath them, they're trying to pay their mortgage, their rent, their bills, and that means that Vegas is dead. So when the recession hit, then a lot of business owners walked away from their businesses several years ago because they couldn't afford to keep their businesses open, whatever they may have been in their respective industries. So this really hurt Vegas at some point in time. So what they did was they raised the standards and made it just that much more difficult for people to be able to start businesses. There's plenty of property here vacant. There's buildings that's been here vacant for the entire time that I've lived here. I rode by them several times, called and inquired. You know, another thing is you have to go through a lot of brokers. There's a lot of middlemen here because everybody got to get their money, right? Like in Michigan, I can call a landlord, I can speak to him directly and negotiate terms. They just want good tenants in the property. It's really not all that difficult to be able to secure property as a renter when you're trying to start a business, as long as you have your paperwork, your documents, and your finances in order. Out here, it's a different ballgame. And nobody can tell you that until you're actually out here with boots on the ground doing it. You can't call somebody and say, hey, do me a favor, try to get a building and see how difficult it was. I had to come down here and immerse myself in the atmosphere to be able to see for myself. And it's extremely challenging. And there's a lot you have to go through to be able to do that. So, you know, whenever in doubt, we go back to what's familiar to us, right? So what's familiar to me is building in my home. And then right now I have programs and gyms that I'm able to teach at and build programs inside of until I'm ready to be able to open up an independent location here.
Okay, that's cool, man. Angel, what's going on with you, man? How you doing?
Nothing much. Really quick before I say, I just had one question. Zeke, the lightweight from your school in Detroit that trains with Dallas, is that Bryant or no?
No, that's Kyron. That's
okay.
Kyron.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of my black belts.
I just know him because Dallas has talked to me about him before, and then I never knew that until I started talking to you, and then I started making the connection. I was like, oh, okay, that's one of his students. I would have never known that until.
Yeah, my student is super respectful. He reached out to me and he says, hey, look, he wanted to get back into being active competitively, and he asked me, where's a good place to go, and we talked about ski, and I said, he's family, you know what I mean? So absolutely, and we know how it is in this industry, and we don't have to get into that because it's a different story for a different segment. But there's just very few people that you can trust to be able to, send somebody that is close to you, who you've raised since a child, over to them and say, hey, you know what? Go over there and get that work, and you guys can be a teammate and whatever else. And it doesn't go anything beyond that. And Ski is definitely one of those individuals in which I can entrust to do that, as well as his son. And as a result, it's been a great partnership for the both of them. They help one another grow, immensely. But yeah, he's definitely one of my guys, and I've brought him up since a child, and his father enrolled him, several years ago, and he says it's the best decision he ever made in his life was to enroll his son into a martial art program, and he's thrived since he's been a part of it. So yeah, that's definitely him.
Okay, yeah, no, man, he did. I've been seeing videos on him for the past year, man. He's made improvements like crazy, dude. Seriously,
indeed,
like crazy. And like I said, Dallas talks really high about him. At one point, I'm gonna try and get over there to Detroit because I said I have to get over there at some point. So we were talking, and Dallas was like, "Yo, man, when you come, let me know. I got people to train with. Like, we can all train together." And that was someone he talked about, and he was like, "He's good, man. Like, he's good." I was like, "Oh, of course." I told him, I was like, "I watched videos on him. He's getting better." I was like, "Yeah."
They're fast. Those kids are fast, man. I saw Dallas fight my son back in Cleveland when you couldn't make it down, and to see how much he's improved is crazy, and how much he's listened to the coaching of his dad. My son was up on him 5 points. It was like 5-1 or 5-0 or something like that. It was like 30 seconds left. And he stopped.
And then he stopped. Zeke, you froze, man. I was all into the story too.
Yeah, me too. And I was gonna be like, man,
his dad came back and beat my son in competitive martial arts competition. That's all I care about. You know what I mean? Like,
man. You froze.
We missed the whole middle of the story.
Yeah, we missed the whole.
Oh man, what happened?
You froze.
Oh man, that's like a cliffhanger.
You said it was like 30 seconds left, and we was just into it, and then you just froze on us.
Oh, that was on purpose. That was by design. I got a button I can click. To make sure the folks is staying tuned in. That's like normally that would be a commercial. When we get bigger, a commercial will go on there, and then the commercial come out. Everybody will get paid. Everybody will eat. And then you hear the rest of it. Right. So now that the commercial's over with, so it was like 30 seconds left. It was like 5-1, 5-0. And he just started honing in, listening to his dad. And he came back and he beat my son in overtime. And to watch the way that he did it, I was really, really impressed. And for me, I want to see good, fair, competitive sport karate. I want to see some good judging. I want to see some good fighting. I'm never going to be the one screaming and stomping if the outcome didn't go. Hey, listen, he won. Like, he came back. It was really good, and I was so happy to see the improvements. Because a lot of times that's what the problem with our sport and our activity is that we just want to continue to see the same person on top. And it don't mean hating on somebody else. It just means that you should really want to see people grow, because as people get better, it forces the competitor to get better. I know if I'm going to beat you 100% of the times, I really don't have to train that hard. I'm like, oh, it's just gonna be such and such there. That ain't no big deal. I can beat him with my eyes closed, right? But if I know he's getting better, then I'm like, man, like he didn't close that gap. You know what? Last time we fought, we went to overtime. Last time we fought, he beat me. For me as an instructor, that's a better experience because now I have something that I can go back and work with my students, and they're ready to listen now. Like all the stuff I was telling them before, even if they etch out, they eke out the win, they don't want to really hear what you guys say. Yeah, but I beat him though. I beat him. So what? I beat him. But when you lose, I'm like, okay, you lost. And they're like, okay, well, what was you saying now that I need to work on? Now you want to hear what I got to say because you lost. So it's really good. It's good for the confidence of the other competitor. It's good for the division. It's good for people to see progress and growth. So I'm just to your point about the Chiron thing and how they're working together. It's really good to see the improvements that Dallas has. And I mean, he got out there and he fought his heart out, man. I mean, he fought everybody that day. He fought Speedy. He fought, Kevin. He fought everybody that day. And he looked good. He just got better each round, each match. So I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I want to make sure I give you that props too and give him those.
Thank
props.
you.
He's doing good. Ain't nothing much really, man, for me, honestly. Like I went down, to North Carolina. We went to go see my fiance. Then I was just training a lot when I was over there. Honestly, I was training a lot, man. I trained at this, Zeke, you may not know, but I trained. So Gina's heard me talk about it. Even though I'm from Connecticut, like I ended up a few years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I ended up getting linked up with Sean Elliott and Gina Thornton from Virginia.
Nice.
And that was the best thing that's ever happened to me in my career. I'm mad at myself that I didn't get a chance to reach them sooner because like when I tell you my progression went from just here to the ceiling, it makes a difference. And you talk about how with Chiron and with Dallas, how he listens to Ski so intently. That's what it's like when I have Sean and Gina there. I'm saying, I can hear what they're saying through a whole entire like hall full of screaming people. It's just, that's what I have. So I was just training with them. We were getting back on it, and then man, like that was good trainings, man. Like there's something about those trainings where you leave exhausted and you don't think you could walk, and you come back for more. So it was good. And then outside of that, man, I just gotta get ready for work tomorrow. My break is done, my vacation's done, so gotta get ready for work tomorrow. Get back to reality, and then just get back to training and everything. So that's all I really got.
Have you had any MMA training lately? The last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I've been having MMA training the last couple of weeks. Last week I didn't have nothing because I was away. But the week before that, I was training. So actually tomorrow, I think I sent one of my coaches. I say Happy Easter. I'll see you on the mats tomorrow. Tomorrow I got Jiu-Jitsu fundamentals, and then we do MMA fundamentals after. So
okay,
yeah, I got that tomorrow. So yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then that's really what I've been doing, and that's it.
All right, cool. Let's start with our first topic.
Heard you.
What is the proper way to train jiu-jitsu? Now, I came up with this question because it's almost three different ways you can look at it. You have some people who treat it like a traditional martial arts system that's going through the belt system. They go to class, maybe 3, 4, or 5 times a week. They get stripes sometimes. They go to tournaments, sometimes they don't. Then you have people who train who don't really care about the belts. They just want to go just to learn the martial arts. And that's what they enjoy, and then that's fine. And then you have some people who are the athletes, the ones that are, becoming more and more famous in this activity. The people who are training, but they're training like 3 times a day. They have a morning session, an afternoon session, and an evening session, and they're training 5 to 7 days a week. Maybe they might have a day off, maybe, and those are the people that are really, really giving their life to the activity. And when I look at that way of training, I'm thinking they have to be injured all the time, because this is not, even though it's called the gentle art, this is not gentle on your body. You will take a beating doing some of these trainings, whether it's, hurting your ankle or your fingers, especially if you're doing gi, man. your grips holding on tight to a gi, that can hurt your fingers over time, especially as you get older and start developing arthritis and things like that. And you can just really get banged up with someone if especially if you're the type of person that's not pulling guard. You're doing the takedowns, you're getting slammed down, someone's jumping on top of you, you could possibly pop a rib or something. So I just wonder, what do you guys think is the proper way to train jiu-jitsu?
I mean, the professor should speak first, honestly. I feel like if we're going off of just like, I'm still a student, so I'm like, professor, you speak first. You come before my rank, so go ahead, sir.
So the title of this show is the Jiu-Jitsu Controversy, and each one of our topics that we'll have as it builds will have some level of controversy behind it, because people have different opinions about these topics and these matters, and it can be very controversial. As far as jiu-jitsu, you highlight some really great points. I believe that the gentle art, this comes into play because of the fact that, unlike most traditional martial arts, there's really no striking components involved, right? So I guess that can make it gentle in comparison to some of the other arts. But as you articulated, it's not gentle on the body. I mean, it's very demanding. You have to have your fingers that you're conditioning. You have to actually condition each part of your body separately and individually. I can be a really strong and powerful person, but I can have poor grip strength, and I have to condition my fingers. And you'll see some people's fingers look like the letter S because they've been broken so much, and put back together or dislocated. And you'll see tape all over them. They're like a mummy walking around there. And your toes, and you're getting thrown on your back and your knees and just everything. So when you oftentimes people become very obsessive and compulsive when it comes to learning something new. They're excited. It's something brand new for them. And jiu-jitsu is one of those things where it can be very addictive. It's different than a lot of other martial arts. Like, people are excited about a lot of traditional martial arts. When I use these words, please know that I'm speaking in generality, so it's not everybody's grouped into this particular box. But for the most part, people are excited to train martial arts when they're new and when they're learning. But there's something about jiu-jitsu, just the maze of movements and it being an enigma of different things. Like, they get really addicted to it, and it forces and prompts them to want to train and overtrain 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and 5 days a week. Obviously, consistency is really important. All right. But that consistency shouldn't lead to overdoing it, because what ends up happening is sometimes we'll end up putting ourselves in a position physically, to where we just can't continue, or we can't do it as much as we like or for as long as we like to do it. Right. So we can compromise our body early on. There's other times that we get burnt out. Like, for instance, when a student first joins my academy in any martial art program, there's only a couple of days a week they can train, but they want to train all the time. And it's just like, nope, these are the days you can train. And they're like, why? Especially if it's like karate and it's a kid. The parents are like, why can't they come more? Why can't they come more? It's like, these are the only days you can come. Because we've seen it both ways. And I know that no matter how much you love it, if I let you roll up in here 5 days out of the week, then instead of me having you for a year or 2 or 3, I'm going to have you for about 4 months, 5 months, 6 months tops. Because I allowed you to burn yourself out. You know what I mean? I allowed you to be able to start prioritizing this over other things in your life. And it's not a really realistic way when you're looking to build a long-term student. So how do I train it properly? I make sure that I'm consistent. All right. That doesn't mean overdoing it and burning myself out. Right. If you have 3 days a week worth of classes, then I definitely need to make sure that I'm training 3 days a week. I don't need to train and roll 5 days a week. Jiu-jitsu is also challenging because it's one of the few arts that actually has a live sparring component, right? So at the end of each class, now, if you're training with a true Brazilian, let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to lean in. I'm going to say something unpopular again for another week. And I love Brazil. I don't have nothing against the Brazilians, so don't start with me. You know what I mean? But if you train at a legit academy, this your instructor going to come and goes, okay, guys, today we're going to do this, guys. We're going to do the armbar today. Okay, get your partner, guys. We're going to go for the armbar. Okay. And you're going to do 3 moves. Okay, the class is going to be 90 minutes, but you're going to do 3 moves, and you're going to roll the whole time. You're rolling the whole time. And no other martial art is like that. Like, you don't go to karate unless you have a designated fight night where you actually sprawl. It's a sprawling night, right? You don't. When you go and it's an A day or a B day, you're gonna work forms that whole day. You're not gonna work forms, and at the end of it, people are like, okay, get your gear, guys. After you do 2-1, get your gear, and we're gonna fight for the rest of the 45 minutes. You're not gonna be on a technique day and doing up blocks and middle blocks, and then all of a sudden put gear on and fight the whole class. This doesn't really happen, but it's common in jiu-jitsu. And again, this is why we have to be smart trained, because of the fact that you can get injured, you can burn yourself out, soon. So consistency is key. Not burning yourself out is really important, and making sure that you check your ego at the door, and you lean on the tap system. You lean on it. That's what makes it hard. Right? If you slide and you hit me with a sliding roundhouse in the face, I can't see it coming and then tap out and say, "Okay, you got me, bro." I'm gonna have to eat that kick. I'm gonna have to eat that foot in the face. I'm gonna have to eat that reverse punch to the body, to the breadbasket, and I'm gonna have to keep fighting. But in jiu-jitsu, if it's too much for me, I can just tap out and then we slap bump and we can restart. But we don't do that. We don't lean on the safe component that's built into jiu-jitsu, which is the tap system. So to answer your question, being consistent, not overdoing it, and then checking the ego at the door and making sure that I lean on the tap system when I actually am rolling.
What about you? What do you think, Angel? Because now you're just not doing jiu-jitsu just to do jiu-jitsu or for a belt. You're actually doing it for MMA competition. So
actually, I will. So it's gonna be a two-part answer, right? And they're gonna sound conflicting in its essence, but I'll explain how I approach it, right? When I go to the Jiu-Jitsu fundamentals class, and when I'm going to my Jiu-Jitsu class, my first focus is to learn Jiu-Jitsu because I want to learn the art. I don't look at it from a sports perspective. So the sports side of it and the competition side of it and the MMA side of it honestly come last in my book, because I'm truly there just to learn the art. That's really what I'm there for, and I've always wanted to learn it. Oh man, I'm gonna get killed.
I gotta put this on, Brett. We're gonna get back to your question, but first I gotta put that on.
The real G Money said, "Wait, Angel does MMA now? Where have I been?"
I'm gonna get killed. So that's actually the truth. Now, when I'm approaching it from a competitive standpoint, now I know I got a tournament coming up, or we have guys in the gym that have fights coming up. So I got to kind of be on my P's and Q's a little bit more in my jiu-jitsu, because I got to give them better reads, right? On that part of it, I am looking at it from I am trying to push my threshold to the farthest I can without compromising my safety aspect. So Zeke talking about, that's why we have the tap system. In our gym, they kind of say it like we have a saying: tap early, tap often. And that's what we say in like I call it like it's the fundamentals class, but it's like, your everyday class where it's a mix of just your everyday people and then the pros and the amateurs, and everyone's all together. So everyone works with each other. And essentially, as Zeke said, check your ego at the door. It's okay for you not to go to the guy that has an MMA fight or he has a pro record, because the way he's going to train his jiu-jitsu may be a little bit more aggressive than the person this is their hobby that gets them to be active. The way they're going to approach the jiu-jitsu may be different. Now, the pro guy, and most pros, I don't want to say all of them, but most pros, they know how to scale the intensity to the partner, like how we all do for karate, right? I'm not going to kill a white belt and try to hit him with a 360 tornado kick. Like we're professionals in that sense. So when I'm in the class, I really scale it to that. And I'll be honest, man, like I do my tap early, tap often, so I keep myself preserved. I don't get injured, but I also push that threshold where, let's say I know, I set personal goals. In my honest opinion, I set personal goals. So if I know, when someone puts on their guillotine, or if I'm about to get guillotined, it's usually off of my double leg because my head's too low or whatever it is. I'm gonna still shoot for my double leg, but how long can I push the time before I have to tap, right? And that's sometimes what I do. If we do 6-minute rounds, my goal is to not tap at all that round. Or maybe I tap 2 times. And how do I not put myself in those compromising positions to get tapped? That's really where I'm trying to approach it from that sense. But like I said, I usually have like a split mindset. So there's times where I have to be a little bit more aggressive in nature, and I got to be more on P's and Q's for the other guys in the gym. And there's when we're in certain classes, you know, I'm there flowing. I'll be honest, man. I'm a big proponent, and the way I've gotten a little bit better in my rolling and in my jiu-jitsu application has just been flow rolls. I'm really big on flow rolls. Like, it's almost kind of like our slow sparring. It's like the same thing. It's just I just want to apply the technique, and I want you to defend it. We don't have to go at 1,000. If we're doing this properly, we should be able to go at that 25 to 50% range and still give each other a good work. So that's how I approach it.
Okay. Brett had a good question. It says, what is a body part that you need to strengthen for jiu-jitsu that someone who is just getting into it may not think about? Out of body parts, I'm going to say the lower body, the legs, because you need to stretch often. And that's something I know I definitely need to do more.
All right. So you say legs?
I say legs.
Okay. I say core. I think people don't realize how much you need to bridge up and down, and the way for you to kind of get your bump sweeps and some of that stuff. Yeah, is technical in nature, but some of it is you need to bridge over. You need to be able to push from your core to create the space. And your core is a lot more engaged than people would think. Zeke, go ahead.
All right, I would say I'm gonna read it from the technical standpoint of what it was specifically asked, and I'm gonna use the word fingers for grip strength. The reason why is because I do believe that you should stretch, and that will probably be for any martial art activity that you do or any physical activity, even if it's running or something like that. So flexibility does play a big part, which means that you're not wrong, but that's more like developing flexibility and range of motion more than strengthening. For you, for as far as core goes, you are correct, Angel, and this is not saying that I'm correct and you guys are wrong, but I'm just looking at it from the technical way that it's read, and it's read. As far as there's a funny saying that I remember my instructor saying when I first started, and he was telling me about one of his instructors, and he says they'll be rolling, and somebody, even maybe him, will kind of yell out and say, "Hey, professor, this move didn't. I wasn't able to escape this position." He wouldn't even be looking at him; he'd be looking at somebody else, and he says, "Your hips." And he says, "Yeah, no, but I was trying to get out." He said, "Your hips." And he says, "But you're not even looking at me." He said, "Doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you why you can't get out, why you can't finish this move, it's your hips. I can guarantee you. Before I even look at you." And then when he looked at him, he would show him that it has something to do with his hips. So the core is correct, but oftentimes it's the lack of understanding certain principles and fundamentals to why we're not able to get those bump sweeps, because we're not utilizing our hips correctly. And that may not be a core thing. It may be a positioning of foot. It may be the way I'm extending myself when I'm trying to do that move. It can be certain type of ways that I'm posting or I'm not posting. So those things. But the grip strength, it doesn't matter if I'm doing gi or no gi. Like, you would never think that your fingers would tire at that kind of rate when you're trying to grab somebody and push away from somebody and stop them from coming in, pull them into you, pour their hair down, trap something. That grip strength, your hands and your fingers, afterwards, if you look at a person's body, an inexperienced person and then an intermediate and then a very experienced person, and you look at what is one of the most taped parts of their body, it's always their hands and their fingers, right? You know what I mean? So to you guys, you're right. But in my opinion, as far as we're talking about to strengthen, I would have to say that it would be the fingers and the grip strength as far as strengthening goes.
That's a good. Hey, listen, that's a good point. I'll tell you what, man. And I know he's not on here, but when he gets on here, he will be the one to tell this story, because we were at U.S. Open one time. Chris Walker, I'm gonna be honest, bro. Like, there was one time we were joking around and we did something at U.S. Open. He grabbed me. He's like, "Nah, man, if someone did this, I'll just grab him." And when he grabbed me, I swear to God, I felt like I had a vice grip on me. Like, we weren't even like, we were arguing. He was just showing me like what he would do. And in the back of my brain, I said, "Oh, I wouldn't get out. Like I think I could elbow you, I could knee you, but you would still hold on to some degree. I would have to find a way to really break this like grip." Like, when he held me, I was like, "Oh, yeah, ain't nobody getting out of this." Like,
yeah.
And if you ever, and I've seen a few of Chris's matches, and the matches that I have seen, because of his grip strength, it creates people to then focus on that, which allows him to set up the other he's gonna start attacking
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Crazy, because I've seen it, and when I see it, I go like, oh, I know how that feels. Like, I know what he's feeling right now. So yeah, his grip strength was. I'll be honest, man. When he gets on, he'll tell you, his grip strength is nuts. Like,
somebody grabs you, you're the first thing you're thinking about instinctively, like you highlighted, it's trying to break the hold. Mm-hmm. You're like, dude, I got to get this dude off of me. Like I feel panicked. Like this guy is, I can't get away. And then as a result, you stop doing what? Focusing on your offense.
Yeah.
So that gives the person an opportunity to be successful with whatever it is they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So Real G Money says, agree, same as amateur wrestling, finger and hand strength. Yes, it's any grappling art for sure.
All right.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, let's move on. So the next topic we got is sports jiu-jitsu controversy. What's going on with this, Angel?
So it's going to be a two-part question. So my first part of this question is going to be this. Will the UFC, so hold on, first let me give a quick context. The UFC is now starting to get into sport jiu-jitsu, and they're starting to kind of try and, what they did for UFC in those early development stages, they're trying to bring that to sport jiu-jitsu and kind of give it a platform where it has a unified rule set and trying to build it up, right? Kind of like Power Slap. So one of the people they signed was Mikey Musumeci, and I think he was the first person that UFC has signed now. Now, because of that, and Dana White's getting into that, my question, this is a two-part question. The first part is, will the UFC's involvement in sport jiu-jitsu be a pro or a con for the sport as a whole?
Okay. I think it'll be a pro.
Okay, so at some point I'm going to interject because I'm going to ask part two of the question. So you say pro. Zeke, what do you say?
The UFC's involved. Repeat the question. I want to make sure I understand it 100% clear.
Will the UFC's involvement in sport jiu-jitsu be a pro or a con for the sport as a whole?
I'll say con.
You'll say con?
Ooh. Yeah.
See, so I've been 50-50. I've been thinking about this, honestly, all week. And, okay, I'm going to say pro, but I'm saying pro because of what the next question is going to be. So you guys give me your answers, and then I'll give you my answer, and then it'll segue into our next question. So why do you be a pro?
I say pro because, the UFC is the biggest MMA organization, and they're going to help put eyes on the product.
Okay.
And the more eyes that you have on the product means the more sponsorships and the more money that's going to be involved. Now, I'm talking about for the sport in the long run, I can see that as a positive. Now, in the future, that might change because you know how sometimes when the UFC or any big time organizations, when they get involved in things change and they might implement certain rules that are different.
Yeah.
They bad blood. Because it's not like they're going to be, if once the UFC, they put more money behind it, if they're considered to be the number one product, number two is going to be down here compared to them. So you might not have the same type of money. Anything like look at pro wrestling. Like you have the WWE, it's up here. Nobody else is the next AEW is down here compared to WWE. It's not even comparable, especially with money and everything, notoriety. I think that the UFC just has a better chance of making it more legitimate and a bigger household name.
Okay.
Now, what do you think? What do you think, Zeke?
I think that in order to, well, first of all, I can understand why you would think that it's a pro, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned. Being a big name and a big brand with anything that you touch or that you associate yourself with is going to bring in the audience that it already has, and it's going to bring in a new set of eyes, which would be good for a sport that just doesn't get televised and promoted at the level in which it probably should. It's very difficult to be able to get people interested in this when you can see a grappling or jiu-jitsu component in MMA. It's like, why would I watch it and just being boring with people just grappling alone when I can watch people grappling that can strike, which is why they started like the combat jiu-jitsu and things like that. So I can understand why one would think that. But the thing is that if you look classically at what happens when MMA gets a part of something, it begins to try to change the base of it as a whole. And that takes away from actual sport itself. So I'll use this as an example. Karate combat.
Mm-hmm.
We love karate combat. We think that at its inception, at the beginning, let me back up. It was a great concept. It was a fantastic concept that highlighted or gave the opportunity and ability for actual people who were not interested in participating in MMA per se or kickboxing to be able to go out and actually showcase traditional martial arts to the world, right? And then we started getting some failed UFC fighters and some people who were not successful in the realm of MMA, and they were a big draw, like the UFC. Because of the UFC, they started going over to this particular league, and then what happened? The rules began to slowly cater, towards these individuals and began capitulating towards the people in which the league was created for. I believe at some point they'll realize that in order for us to be able to get and keep, not get, but keep a consistent core group of individuals and eyes on it, that they're going to have to make modifications to the rules that are not going to be beneficial for the people in which the sport was created for, right? So then you're going to start seeing some of these people phase out, the people that we love, and you're going to start seeing more MMA-oriented individuals coming in. And if you don't believe that, I want you just to look at judo as a great example of that. There are certain moves and certain judo and that they won't allow, like you can't shoot double legs and stuff like that in judo competitions because it was an influx of wrestlers that was coming over there because wrestling had got big, and wrestlers who wasn't really good judokas, but they were wrestlers, was coming in and they were slamming and getting takedowns, and then the judokas could not actually utilize their art and their craft. So as a result, they're like, look, we're going to have to ban some of these moves. Even the IBJJF, there's certain moves that they won't let you be able to do because they know that if we start allowing these people to come over, we're going to actually lose our sport itself, the people who it was created for. So I think that to answer the question, I'll let you go ahead and segue. Yeah. I think that overall is going to be a con because I know that they're not going to be able to keep the integrity of it the way that it is and the purity of it. They're gonna have to change to be able to keep an audience.
Okay. Hey, I like that point you just brought up. Real G Money, he's loving this conversation. A good point that you just made, Zeke, and now that you said that, you're making me go back on the con side because now you're making me think of, imagine if Point Karate Tournament said now we're gonna start allowing knockouts. We're gonna lose that core what we are, and then so you're making me okay, like that makes sense. I was saying pro, and now I'm still in the middle. Honestly, I was saying pro because I was saying from sponsorship dollars, they can start getting the money that they deserve, right? I was on the con side of it also because I also said, now one, what stops that? If I want to watch grappling, but I want to watch striking, that it's still going to lead to MMA. MMA will still be the part that everyone's going to lead to. And it's almost like now you're competing within your own brand. And that's where I was saying.
Right.
And that's where I was saying, like, okay, I don't see how that will work, right? And that will end up hurting jiu-jitsu because more people are going to bash it than see it as its own entity. Now, the other reason why I thought it could be a pro, and now this is going to segue into my next question, this second part of it, was this. Okay. Should steroids be banned in sport jiu-jitsu?
100% yes.
Currently, right now, they're not. And this is a controversy
that's crazy.
Jiu-jitsu practitioners are having with each other. Now, the famous point I can say right now, and I'm not bashing no one. I'm just saying Mikey Musumeci is leading the charge as being the all-natural sport jiu-jitsu athlete. And
Nick Rodriguez.
Yeah, and he bashes Gordon Ryan and some of the other people for being the juiced sport jiu-jitsu athlete. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think about that? Do you think it will? I don't know. Like, do you think it should be banned? Do Do you think the UFC's involvement will be better so that way it makes it a clean sport? I mean, what do you guys think?
Man,
I know that's a deep layer topic. I know.
yeah, because I never ever thought about people taking steroids in jiu-jitsu up until 2 years ago when Tyrone Gooden came to my school and brought Steve when Steve first started teaching at my school, and we were just sitting on the side talking, and he told me that one of his students had got injured, got his arm broken in a tournament. And I said, how did that happen? He was like, he was rolling with, you know, some steroid guy, and the guy just took him down and broke his arm, you know, real fast. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, people are doing steroids in this activity? Like this to me, this is like boxing. Like, these two activities should not have steroids at all, because whoever is on that stuff is going to have the advantage. And if that's the case, then that's going to make everybody else have to do it in order to compete. And now you're going to end up dealing with people who are going to have some health issues in the future. I mean, just look at bodybuilding. If you're a pro at bodybuilding, steroids are legal, and you got a lot of people who are dying at early ages. People should not be dying in their 30s and 40s and 50s. Bodybuilding, that's crazy. So I don't see how that can be a positive in this activity. Now, I want to go back to something else that you said, Angel, about the last topic that we had, and I just want to make a point. Craig Jones Invitational, he gives out $1 million for first place, right? $1 million. If the UFC gets involved in doing that, they're going to surpass $1 million for first place. That's nothing but good. I mean, that's whoever participated in those tournaments, that's nothing but positive for those people.
So, I mean, so you saying that, and that was why, again, this is where it gets into the 50.
Yeah, I got you.
Brett just put down a comment saying, well, the UFC will bring USADA back in, or will bring USADA in. So
yeah, that's very true.
Now, wait, do they have USADA in, or is they with another company? Is it still USADA? I thought they got rid of them.
I'm not sure.
They were planning to get for them to leave, but I don't know when or.
Yeah, but either way, they're gonna bring in some type of drug testing policy. That's and I know what Brett is saying. So that's why I thought about the UFC's involvement. And then I got to this question, because you have someone like Mikey Musumeci, who is now pushing the whole being the clean sport jiu-jitsu athlete. And he was saying, you know, I think that was a part of the UFC signing him to this lucrative deal. And then you start to wonder, now what happens if you sign someone that is not a natural athlete in terms of what their supplements is, and they're taking steroids? What does that do now to the MMA fighter? Now, would they try to go and compete in jiu-jitsu for a certain period of time and then get off before testing starts again, and then they go and compete in MMA? You know, it poses so many different questions, and there's so many different answers. I don't know. That's why I want to say, Zeke, you're out there in Vegas, so I don't know if this is talked about a lot within like the community, or if it's just outside of the community that's talked about. But what's your thought point?
In the circles that I'm in, it's not something that's talked about a great deal. That doesn't mean that it isn't being talked about. I'm sure that being Vegas, there's a lot of places and cases in which this is transpiring. So I do want to go back and revisit one of the things you just said when you were talking about Chris, and you were talking about his grip strength. I mean, we were having a separate conversation about strengthening different parts of the body and the grip strength. So we were talking about that from a strengthening standpoint. A natural athlete, a person that's just working on their own to become stronger and better as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Now, you talked about how when he got a hold of you when you guys were fooling around, you couldn't get away. This is the person that's just improved their grip strength. No steroids or anything that we know of involved, right? So now you couple that with actual steroids, right? Because what you're doing is you're creating, like Gene said, an environment in which you may as well not even participate if you're not participating. You may as well not participate if you're not taking steroids. It's a waste of your time. It doesn't even make that. Now, it's not saying you can't win, but you already know that the playing field is not leveled. So you change the entire course, the entire shape of the activity by allowing these things to be legal. Here's another thing. Jiu-Jitsu has been for quite some time, which is why we're talking about on the show, which is why we're having these topics and conversations. It's trying to become much more mainstream and relevant to your first point about bringing the UFC on board to be able to promote it, right? So if that's what we're really talking about trying to do, then the question is that the steroids have to be out, because any reputable, legitimate, and clean sport that we recognize, steroids are banned. So you can't in one breath, in one vein say, well, I want to be recognized as being a competitive, a mainstream sport and activity, and I want to be just as respected and in front of the public eyes like everything else, but we don't want to adhere to the clean level of everything else, and we want to openly be able to say that we're taking steroids. Now, hey, listen, in baseball and in MMA and every activity, there's people taking steroids, but it's not openly promoted. We're like, hey, listen, like, you know, you don't have to hide it. Feel free to pop those boys if you feel like it, and needle up and take. No, it's not. It's frowned upon, which is why it's done in the dark, and it's done, you know, in hiding, and it's kept secret from people, and people are getting caught, and they're making these extreme examples. But if you allow it, I think that you delegitimize the sport, because now people are just going to be able to accredit people's success, not to technique, skill, or skill, but to drugs, right? So it becomes a druggy sport, and you can't, in the same breath, say that you want to be recognized as mainstream, as appreciated as anything else, but then by the same token, you want to be able to play unfair, and you want that to be okay too. Absolutely not.
So I agree, and I'll be honest with you. So when I thought about this, right, my biggest reason why I said the pro for the UFC getting involved was because of this question I'm asking now: should steroids be banned in sport jiu-jitsu? That was actually my biggest reason why I said it should be a pro, and that was why. And for me, now I'll tackle it from the competitive standpoint, right? If I was going into a match knowing that there's a chance you could or could not be on steroids, I will not perform like I'm trying to win. I'm performing like I don't want to get hurt. Which we talked about that tapping early thing. If I think you hit me with a hard takedown, I'll tap. If you try to hit me with a hip toss, I will tap. Because now the strength level is not in a... Obviously, we know that there's some people that they're just genetically gifted. But we can see that, and we can feel that genetically gifted sometimes. When you know that there's when you know, thanks, Sam. When you know that there's someone that you could be going against, and that if once they throw you, that that becomes the life or death situation. Now that becomes the part where now you're worried. You're not going to perform as optimally as you would like to. And then I look at it from the other standpoint of how, you know, everyone wants to, I don't want to say everybody, the people that are competing in sport jiu-jitsu that are doing it as a profession, they want it to be mainstream. And when we look at it, I say, okay, it's still considered a combat sport to some degree. So because it's still considered a combat sport to some degree, there has to be a rule and regulation. We can't have the wild, wild west, right? We got to see where that got the UFC, but at some point for them to be taken serious, they had to get into that realm of we have to make it legitimized. We have to do testing. You know, I say this because I know we probably can picture the person. We all know what Alistair Overeem looked like before they started testing.
Yeah.
And we all saw what he was able to do to people.
Yeah.
We also saw what happened to him after they started testing. And we saw what happened to him when he was fighting these people. Same thing with Vitor Belfort. That's like the most common case of, like, everyone calls him TRT Belfort. That's his nickname.
Yeah.
That man, I swear to God, that man had 3 separate successful runs before testing. Like, it was crazy. And then after testing, it wasn't even close. It was like a shell of himself. So I think it shows the impact that you can have. So that was actually my biggest reason why I said I think it would be a pro if they were to get into sport jiu-jitsu and then, you know, try to put it on a higher platform. But then you hit me with the good con of it could also turn people off from looking into the sport. So that's why I said you guys got me in that middle ground.
The thing is that with the amount of money, like Gene brought up, you know what I mean, about the Craig invitation on giving away $1 million, he just in doing that changed the entire landscape of jiu-jitsu from a monetary standpoint. So it is now. It probably wasn't before, unless you were hitting a ton of competitions and winning first place at all of them. It wasn't really looked upon as a kind of sport that you can live off of and make a living off of as a professional. No matter how good you were, you'd have to win absolute divisions, you know, and super fights and all these tournaments just to be able to sustain and then still be able to go off on a run and do seminars, which doesn't have the same appeal like they used to because, you know, everybody's good and everybody's doing seminars nowadays. But $1 million for a competition, you know, winning a competition, well, that changes things. So when you got that kind of money involved, I don't think that it's that difficult to be able to develop a testing system. And I think that it should be mandated when you're giving away $1 million, even if you're giving away 6 figures. I'm giving away $100,000. I think that it's really easy to be able to bring a testing commission on board to be able to regulate this thing without the UFC or MMA having to be involved. We can't keep on saying that we want these sports to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and be recognized as their own, but then we want to continue to put them under the umbrella of MMA, but we want them to be separate. If you notice, like Power Slap, okay, that's something totally different. It in no way, shape, or form is anything like MMA at all. So it can have its own crowd, its own umbrella. You know, Dana White owned it, involved in it, or whatever the case is, president. But you know, he ain't in the forefront of it. It's Power Slap. Like you know it, but it's Power Slap. It's not Power Slap powered by the UFC. Power Slap in conjunction with it's Power Slap. Like to get you to watch it, we told you the Dana White got the money behind the boom. He went to a couple things, whatever. It's Power Slap. You know, if it's bare knuckle fighting ain't nothing like MMA. So if he comes out with a bare knuckle, this is bare knuckle league. You know what? It's not bare knuckle by UFC. It's bare knuckle. But jiu-jitsu is a component that is very popularly used in MMA. So, you know, again, it's like we know what the natural progression is going to be. Most likely we're used to seeing this type of an activity with striking involved. Now you're trying to get me to watch it just on its own, you know, entity by itself without there being striking. It can be exciting. You know what I mean? I get it. But it can be dull at times too. When guys are just laying on each other, they're not doing very much. So I get the pro of getting more eyes on it. I don't think that the pro should be just because I'm concerned about the regulation of the steroids and keeping it clean. Because when you get in the realm of giving out 6 figures, you know, and you get in the realm of giving out 7 figures, you know, it should be easy to be able to start. And the people who are competing should expect that. You know I'm going to be tested regularly because I understand the stakes. I ain't competing for $10,000 at ADCC no more. You know what I mean? Like I'm competing for $100,000. I'm competing for $1 million. So they'll fall in line. They'll have no problem with it at all. So I get how that can be a pro, but I think that that's going to naturally be able to work itself into the system when you're giving out the kind of money that you're giving out for this activity now.
All right. Let's move on. Let's head to the professor's perspective. Jiu-Jitsu modernized, good or bad? So Zeke, this is your segment. Do you want me to bring the video up now?
Yeah, you can go ahead and bring the video up.
All right.
So this is the video of me working with a young lady. She's only been to, I think, 1, maybe 2 of my classes. So I'm just now working with her. And she trained previously, the Swedish young lady, she trained previously just for fun, not for competition, not to for anything like that, but just because she enjoys training in all type of facets of martial arts. You know, for a while she had trained, you know, with Alpha Male under Uriah Faber. Not saying she's like, you know, super good or nothing like that, but just because she likes to train and stay in shape. So what I thought about in working with her, you know, and it's prompted me to think about for quite some time is over the years to continue to stay relevant and seeming to evolve. Jiu-Jitsu always has these periods of what people deem to be evolution. So when the young kids and the young boys get a hold of it, they feel like that certain moves won't work anymore, and we need to be able to, you know, do things a different way. And my thing is this a good thing for the activity or a bad thing? So over the next few weeks, maybe not back to back, because we do have developing news that we need to talk about and discuss. But I want to go over certain moves that I feel like that the evolution or the modernization of these moves have been good for the activity, and it's been bad in some instances. So this is just a regular guillotine that she was trying to perform and she was trying to do on me, and she had a pretty good job of being able to execute it. But I was explaining to her how it can be fought, how it can easily be fought off. And obviously we're standing, we're not inside the guard, we're not rolling, but how I can easily fight this choke off. And I talked to her about a modernization of the move or evolution of the move is to do something that I call a power guillotine, or some people call it a ninja choke now, where basically we just, instead of just having the grips here, I'm able to slide up and almost finish the choke like a rear naked choke. Now, if you watch any jiu-jitsu, or particularly MMA, I won't say just jiu-jitsu, I'll say MMA, we'll notice that, not saying it's still not an effective move. You have a lot of good people like Jim Miller and a lot of good guys that still can jump, and it's their specialty. But have you ever noticed that some of these moves people are seen to be escaping more than they used to at one point in time? Like, it's like, I don't think that people's defense is necessarily getting better. I just think that some of the modernizations of some of these moves has allowed people to be able to be more defensively savvy, or maybe took away some of the elements that made the move as successful. So I think that for this particular move, this is a great modernization, switching to a power guillotine or ninja choke, because of the fact that normally when you're trying to fight this choke and escape it, you can still get your hands in and fight the wrist. And we're seeing that a lot. In MMA, certain guys might have certain hairdos, maybe they're super sweaty, maybe they're bleeding. And when guys are going for this choke and they're actually trying to crank this choke, you'll start to see a person's head pop out. But the great thing about this choke and the modernization of it is that if I got this elbow pinned down nice and tight, there's nothing stopping me from just shooting this hand straight through and this other hand behind the neck. And once I lock that in, I don't have to worry about that person's head sliding out or sneaking out at all, no matter what the case is. So I think that this is one of the few moves that it's a really good modernization of it. All right. You can pull the video down if you have to. I think that there's some moves that actually help the sport and the activity, and some that don't. And I want to give credit, and in some of these segments, I'm going to be giving credit and highlighting the ones that I think that are good, or I think that are not so great. And that's just my perspective and my opinion, obviously. But I think that this is a great modernization for this move. When my elbow's already down, as it is, I'm pinching this elbow. There's nothing for me to open this hand and slide this behind the head here, and this, into the bicep, and this behind the head. I don't have to release the grip at all to make this transition, right? I don't have to do anything where I release and I change anything. I'm in this position here. The elbow's down. I open the hand. This goes right in the bicep, and this just goes right behind the neck. And I still can continue to apply pressure. By putting that hand behind the neck, it stops that pop out that we keep on seeing, where you're watching Joe Rogan or somebody says, oh, he's got it. Oh, no, his head's coming out. And you see the guy's hair sliding up. This locks the head into place, and I don't have to actually release any of the pressure. So, I want you guys, when you're watching MMA, I just want you to watch the way that you were classically taught some of these moves. And then some of the ways that you're seeing this new way, the new age of people doing it. And ask yourself, is this evolution, is this modernization of this particular move helping the move and improving the success rate of the move, or is it actually hurting the move? And I'm seeing a mixture of both, and I want to make sure that I'm spending some time going over it. The way that I teach a lot of, and it's not because I'm just old school and I'm not familiar with the newer ways of being able to execute these moves. It's because I've seen them before. I've rolled with some of these people, and I'm like, this isn't effective. It's trending though, and jiu-jitsu's like that. Karate's not like that. We don't have trending move. Well, man, this is trending. Doing this front kick, this where's the side kick, this roundhouse kick. We don't really have it like that. You know what I mean?
Trending. I think karate has trending moves, but I think it's the setup that's trending.
There you go.
Not the app. We're still throwing the same side kick.
The application is the same.
Yeah, but now our setup to get to that side kick is now we're changing it. I'm sure, like, and not to interrupt you, Zeke. My bad, interrupt.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But like the way I see it is, and I'm just comparing it, and now I can see what you're saying. I can see it as like how before, right? When Trav when you guys were fighting, right? You guys would move your back foot to step to cut your angle, and then you're gonna shoot forward. Now we have some people that are just gonna hop forward. We've now we're still doing the reverse punch, but I may just hop before I go instead of taking my full step to then turn my angle. Now let me ask you, with that, if I'm watching, whether it's whether it's in an MMA fight or I'm watching a jiu-jitsu super fight, right? If I'm looking at it, how can I tell whether it's good or bad? Now, what should be like the indicator if I'm watching it as the fan's perspective, right? Because if I see him still successfully pull the choke off, still successfully attack the submission, wouldn't I think as the average person it's good because they were able to still successfully do it?
This is an excellent question. I don't know how far back your jiu-jitsu goes, but if you remember Janji Ribeiro, you know, the Ribeiro brothers, Saulo Ribeiro and his brother Janji were really prominent, you know, people back at the turn of jiu-jitsu, you know, at the beginning stage when it was turning and it was becoming more popularized. And when Ryan Hall had first brought out, I think it was the 50-50 guard, when he first brought this out, and he was a guy that I love, and I use the 50-50 guard even to this day. I love it. I think it's great if you know what you're doing and how to utilize, execute it. And I remember them interviewing different people back then, like when Marcelo Garcia's, the Janjis, the Salus, a lot of those guys, and they interviewed Zanji, and what he said, it was so dismissive. And I remember talking to Matisse, my instructor, about it, and he shared the same school of thought. And he says, you know, just to paraphrase, he says, you know, every few years, there's always this wave of these new moves that come in. He says, but the truth of the matter is, it's easy to shut down if you just use your basics and your fundamentals. And what I found out to answer your question, and I'm not joking around, because I've had some of my students who cross-trained for a while, saw some stuff online, or went to a couple other academies. They want to come back and they would want to roll. And I'm rolling with them and I'm fighting them because they keep trying to do something. And me and Brian laugh about this all the time. And he keeps trying to do something, he keeps trying to do it, and I'm fighting against something I don't even know what he's trying to do. So I just stop and let him do it. And then I just like, I'm not even going to defend it because at this point, I want to see what it is. I want to see what you're trying to do because I'm fighting something. I don't even know what I'm fighting. I don't know if it doesn't feel like I'm in danger. And then when they try to do the move, they're unsuccessful. And then they'll say, oh man, you were supposed to do that. And then I was supposed to do what? So that let me know that the success of the move was predicated on whether I played the game the way that you think that I should play the game. A lot of these jiu-jitsu moves nowadays, I'm noticing only really works well. Not all, okay? So I'm not encompassing all. A lot of them only work well if you respond or react in a like matter or fashion, right? So back to Janji's point, if I just smash my hips down, if I get cross-face control or shoulder pressure, you know what I mean? If I control the wrist, you know what I mean, or the hip or the knee a certain type of way, those are basic fundamental principles that stand the test of time. So when somebody sees somebody successful with the move, they'll probably think it worked because the person probably played the game the way that they were supposed to play it because they know the move too. And when they're rolling and they're practicing it, they're familiar with it. So they're actually subconsciously playing into it. Me as the person who didn't even know what the moves was, I'm like, I'm just using my fundamentals and I'm seeing him getting frustrated. And I'm not even really sure what he's trying to do. I think I know what he's trying to do, you know, but I'm just going to use my fundamentals. So you have to be a little bit seasoned because to be able to compare, to answer your question too. I got to see the move in his most original, authentic form and now see the transition and the evolution of it to be able to actually compare whether or not this was more successful or this is more successful. Then I've had to see it utilized in MMA or jiu-jitsu to see if it was better as well. So it's nothing wrong with trying these things out. It's nothing wrong with playing with them. But again, when we're watching these things with our own eye and we're doing the eye test, I'm seeing some of these moves. And again, I'll go over a few of them. And some of them, you when it start to go over them, you're going to say, you know what? I have noticed that. You know, you notice that some of these moves, the success rate of them are starting to diminish substantially because of the fact that people are just not sticking to basic principles and fundamentals, and they're modernizing and changing these movements, which is taking away from the effectiveness of the moves.
Isaiah, let me ask you this. So this move that this person is trying to do on you, is it something that so it's nothing that you taught them? So is it something they saw on YouTube or an instructional or something like that?
So basically, it was a basic guillotine she wanted to show me. So she wanted to show me a guillotine, which was tight. It was fine. She jumped the guard. You know, I'm not saying I would have got out, I would have popped out or anything like that. I just basically showed her a more effective way of being able to finish it, because
Okay,
you'll see
gotcha.
when somebody's grabbing that guillotine, people do one of two things. They're either going to take the arm across and put a frame on and start
Hmm.
pushing down across the throat of the neck and then trying to pop the head out, or they're going to just fight at those wrists and work on being able to pull those wrists down to create some space and slide their head out. But by this method right here, by sliding into the bicep and locking behind the neck, it prevents that altogether. And if you see it when you're watching it in UFC or I'm sorry, MMA, the first thing a person does when they slide their hand behind the neck is they fall down and they start trying to roll out of it, because they know that by no conventional way can they no longer get out of it. They are trapped. So they try to what we call scramble out of it now, because they don't. To them, there's no technical way of getting out. They're like, okay, I could fight this. Oh, I'm trapped now. So they'll drop down to the floor, hoping the person will let go, or hoping that they can get ahead of the person by rolling and scrambling, and the person loses their grip, and it creates a space or opening for them to get out. It is effective at times, but again, it's not a very technical way of being able to get out, which also speaks to the effectiveness of the move.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Any
So in case you guys, any last words? I got it for you. In case you guys want to know what we said, that whole thing was get back to the basics, man. Stop trying to run before you could walk. Stop trying to look at everything on YouTube. Stop trying to be the person that wants to be, oh, I got this new flashy move, man. Make the flashy move the basics. The basics will always work.
There you go.
You know what? The reason I asked that too, because a couple of weeks ago, in class, my coach had us. We were working on the double underhook pass from the guard, right? And I'm doing it. I'm practicing it, and he kept correcting me, and I did not understand what it was that he kept trying to tell me, because he was just saying, you know, he's like, you leaning too far to the right, you leaning too far to the right. I'm like, man, I'm doing it just like you did it. Is what I'm saying in my head. So I asked him to show me, do it on the person I was working with, and he did it. And what I noticed, he was able to show me, he's like, you're doing it like this. I want you to do it like this. This is how your hips, you're not supposed to lean to the side. Your hips need to stay in place as you're leaning forward and going for the pass. Now, if I had just watched something on YouTube, the YouTube wouldn't be able to correct me, and I would not even know what I'm doing wrong. And that could eventually be a bad habit that I'm developing and not know. So it's important that you have somebody, a coach or an instructor, or someone there to correct whatever move that you're trying to learn, especially if you're going to try and do it when you're rolling.
But we live in a microwave society, and the truth of the matter is, to piggyback off what Angel just said, the truth of the matter is, people are trying to find ways to skip steps, and that's what it is. That's, if I'm being honest with you, all of the moves that a lot of the moves that I have in my head that I'll be covering and going over, if I think about it, it's just somebody trying to skip a step, and I don't even mean a big step. I mean a small little step that can actually make all the difference in the world. And I tell my guys all the time when we're training, especially when I'm working with the jiu-jitsu for MMA, we'll do something and the person will try to hurry up and bypass something. And I say, you know, they'll be winning the whole round. They'll try to bypass something. And I say, okay, just so you know, you could have finished in the first round. Now the fight's going to go to the decision. I say, you could have finished it. You just lost the fight. What do you mean I lost the fight? Because you missed out on this detail that could have finished the guy now. But as you see, he just scrambled or she just scrambled out of it. Now they're back in the fight. And now you're going to look back and you're going to say, I could have finished that in the first round. And now this fight went all the way to the decision. And I won at the decision, or I lost the decision, or I got dropped, or I got clipped in the second round because they worked their way back to their feet. These taking steps out just isn't really a good approach with anything if we think about it. Would you want to take steps out if you were a chef or a cook? Or would you want to take steps out and preparing your food? You know what I mean? Like, would you want a doctor to take steps out when he's performing an operation on your knee? Like this, this microwave fast society where we're trying to skip and get to the next thing. We don't really need that. We don't need to put the knee right there. That's not important. You don't need that. You still can finish it. You can, but the bottom line is that you take some pressure away. You take some weight away. Take some stability away. you take something away, and the moves that I'm covering is either this is going to improve the success rate because we're adding the move, we're adding pressure to ensure that the person can't get out, or these ones aren't working because of the fact that people are omitting these things. So to your point, Angel, you're right. The basics should be the flag stuff should be the basics. And to Eugene, you're absolutely right. I can't get that correction, and instruction by being able to watch something because using the eye test, it looks like I'm doing the same thing, but I can't understand what kind of component or detail I'm missing, why I'm not being successful.
Yeah, because you can't see your body. You can't see yourself or what you're doing, so you definitely need to have that second or third pair of eyes watching you and helping you out with it. So, all right. Any closing remarks for the night?
No.
Cool. I think Angel killed it. That was a great closer. I think that was a great closer.
Another good show. All right, everyone. We'll be back next week. Everyone stay safe, stay strong. We'll holler at you next week. And I have no music yet, Travis. So I'm going to end it right here.